सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। So welcome back to the 10th session. So you have sustained for 10 days, which is a good sign. We'll first look at a couple of questions that were raised with regard to yesterday's class, and then we will complete the remaining verses of the second chapter. So Revati ji had a couple of questions. When steady intellect or intellect stands firm is mentioned in the verses, does it refer to a Brahman or an ideal person, or is there a difference? So first of all, when it comes to the four varnas, we will discuss about it in the fourth chapter. It doesn't. All the four are. I mean, this distinction of the division of society into four is basically based on temperament and profession. So ideal people, it's not like if you meant Brahmin there, because Brahman is the supreme being, and not the ideal. There's no ideal person in individual. It's a all encompassing being. So when you say intellect stands firm, it basically refers to a wise person, somebody who has gone beyond the the travails and confusions of life. So a person who leads a life of peace and tranquility and happiness, irrespective of the external conditions. So wherever that person is, in whatever company, he may be alone, he may be with different people, or at any point of time, he's very happy. Like, the famous verse in the Bhajagovindam, Yogarato va, Bhogarato va, Sangarato va, Sanga Vihinaha, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva. So, like a person, whether he is in yoga, whether he is having a nice meal, whether he is with friends, whether he is alone, whether he is with a girlfriend or boyfriend, or he is in the forest, or whether he is in a library, wherever this person is, they are very peaceful and satisfied. They don't need anything external to bring them happiness. So like this, it's kind of an ideal person who has gone beyond the different um, uh, forces that are pulling people in different directions. Another question was, when Krishna tells Arjuna in the beginning of chapter 2 not to grieve or mourn for anyone, isn't it only natural when your relatives or loved ones will get killed in a battle? Is Krishna saying not to dwell on this, or what is he trying to say in that? I'll come to that when we review the second chapter. But basically, what he's saying is there is no point in grieving about anything. There's no point in worrying. It is natural, but the faster you can move forward and let this go, it is better. So that's basically what he's trying to say. Okay, so let's resume our study of the second chapter. We had seen this Indriyanam, hi charatam yan manonu vidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayur navam ivam bhasi. Just like how the wind takes away the ship off its chartered course, all the various indriyas, they drag the mind off its chartered course. So now we will go to the next shloka for today, which is Tasmadyasya Mahabaho Nigrihitani Sarvashaha Indriyani Indriyarthebhyaha. So Indriyani Indriyarthebhyaha. Indriyani Indriyarthebhyas Tasya Prajna Pratisthita. So he basically says that Mahabaho, a mighty armed one, is a reference to Arjuna. It's a Sambodhana. mighty armed one. He is of steady intellect, whose senses are completely restrained from the influence of the sensates. So we saw yesterday how the sensates are influencing the sense organs, and even though some wise person may restrain the sense organs, there's always a craving for that sensations. And when he reaches the highest level, even the cravings go away. And here, the verse is basically saying, Mahabaho Tasmat, therefore, then, Yasya Indriyani Arthebhyah Sarvashah Nigrihitani Tasya Prajna Pratisthita Bhavati is to be added, to be understood. So, Yasya Indriyani Indriyarthebhyah Sarvashah Nigrihitani. A person who has completely restrained the sense organs from the indriyarthebhyah. So from the sensates, the smell and taste and sight, texture, and what else? Sound. So from these sensates, when the sense organs are completely restrained, then the person is said to be of a steady intellect. Tasmadyasya Mahabaho.
Tasmadyasya Mahabaho.
Nigrihitani Sarvashah.
Nigrihitani Sarvashah.
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah.
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah.
Tasya Prajna Pratisthita.
Tasya Prajna Pratisthita.
So yesterday, Rajeshwari ji had a comment on the chat. Why is it ending with sakara when actually it should be with a visarga? So when the indriyarthebhyah adds to the tasya, then it becomes indriyarthebhyastasya. So when we are writing it in 4 lines, if we don't want to break it into the 2 words, then we write it like we put a dash. In some traditional ways of writing the shloka, what they do, they will put a dash after bhyaha and they will carry forward that half sa to the next line. So it will be indriyarthebhya stasya, sa ta will come on the 4th line. So they write it like that. Here I have put this in this manner so it's easier to read. That's all. Basically, when we recite it in a continuous flow, it will be Indriyani Indriyarthebhyastasya Prajna Pratisthita. It's like one unit. Here, for the sake of convenience, we have put a thing like this. That's all. Okay. Then he says, Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Sanyami Yasyam Jagarti Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. A beautiful verse. He says, the self-restrained person is awake to that which all other beings are asleep. The seer sage is asleep to that which all other beings are awake. So, Sarva Bhutanam Ya Nisha Tasyam Sanyami Jagarti. Yasyam Bhutani Jagarti Sa Pashyatah Munehe Nisha. So what is the literal meaning is this. The Sanyami is awake, Jagarti, when it is night time for everybody. Sarva Bhutanam Ya Nisha. It is what is night for everybody. When it is night for everybody, the wise person is awake. And Yasyam Bhutani Jagarti, when what is the wakeful state for everybody else? Sa Pashyataha Mune Nisha. So that the wise person, the Muni, the sage, looks at it as night. So what is the meaning? Does this mean that a wise person sleeps in the morning and sleeps through the whole day and stays awake the whole night like some people? That's not the literal meaning. So when the literal meaning of a verse doesn't make sense, then we try to look for a suggested meaning, right? If the literal meaning itself is very clear, there is no confusion about it. then there is no need to go and look for a metaphorical meaning. There may be a metaphorical meaning also, because sometimes there are multiple layers of meanings. But the moment you find that the literal meaning of a verse, or it could be also in prose, doesn't matter. When the literal meaning of something seems strange, then we try to see if there is a hidden meaning or if there is a suggested meaning. So what is the suggested meaning here? The self-restrained person is awake to that reality which most other people are oblivious about. So most other people are oblivious about the reality of the Brahman. They are oblivious about the nature, the true nature of the self. So to all these things that most people are oblivious about, that the seer sage is awake to. For example, whether it is matters of detachment, whether it is matters of discipline, whether it is matters of looking at the world objectively, all these things are largely unknown to people. They are as if they are asleep to this reality, whereas the wise sage is awake to this reality. For him, it is bright, clear. What is not clear to others is very clear to him. Similarly, what is daytime for all the people? What is the daily fare for all these people? Sense enjoyments and being indulging in their sense pleasures, and being attached to their actions, being attached to the results of their actions, all these normal things for people, he is aloof. He is completely asleep when it comes to these kind of things. So basically, the focus of the seer, focus of the Muni is on something which is almost diametrically opposite to the focus of the general people of the world. So normally people of the world are interested in indulging in their sense organs and their enjoyments. Normally the sage is interested in the enjoyment of Brahman, of being fully involved within the true self. So the stark contrast between the common people and the realized person is brought out here. That's the import of this verse. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam
या निशा सर्वभूतानां
tasyam jagarti संयमी
तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी
yasyam jagarti bhutani
यस्यां जागर्ति भूतानि
sa nisha pashyato munehe.
सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः.
Then he says, Apuryamanam achalam pratishtham samudramapah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. So just as rivers flow into the ocean, which gets filled up and yet remains perfectly still, similarly, all the desires merge in him and yet he attains peace, unlike the one who is driven by desires. Apaha apuryamanam achalam pratishtham samudram yadvat pravishanti tadvat sarve kamaha yam pravishanti saha shantim apnoti. Na kama kami or kama kami na. So apaha, water, apuryamanam achalam pratishtham samudram yadvat apuryamanam. It get like filling, all the rivers flow into the ocean, yet the samudram or ocean achalam pratishtham, it is perfectly still. It remains still. All the rivers are flowing into it. It's constantly getting disturbed, but it remains still. Similarly, yadvat and tadvat, just as, so as, that kind of a, it's a connecting usages. So yadvat pravishanti, as they enter, pravishanti enter and fill up the ocean, it does not lose its calmness. Tadvat, in the similar manner, sarve kamaha yam pravishanti, whom all the desires enter him, saha shantim apnoti, yet he attains peace. Even though all these desires are coming, constantly coming and hitting, even then he attains peace. Unlike the kama kami, one who is always who is driven by desires, such a person cannot attain peace. It is only the person who has realized the ultimate who can be peaceful. Apuryamanam achalam pratishtham
Apuryamanamachalam pratishtham
samudram apah pravishanti yadvat
samudramapah pravishanti yadvat
tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve
tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve
sa shantim apnoti na kama kami.
sa shantimapnoti na kamakami.
Also an example of a verse which is in a meter which is not anushtup. This has 11 syllables. It is a like a jagati meter, like a bigger meter, or trishtup meter. 11. Then he says, Vihaya kaman yas sarvan pumams charati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sa shantim adhigacchati. So you can see this is a anushtup 8888. It was 11 syllables per line. Here we have 8 syllables per line. Vihaya kaman yas sarvan pumam charati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sa shantim adhigacchati. He attains peace once he overcomes all desires, lives without cravings, and is free from ego or any sense of ownership. Yaha Puman, that individual, that man, Sarvan Kaman Vihaya, all desires, having discarded all the desires, having overcome all the desires, Nispraha, he is not attached, who lives without cravings. Nirmamaha, without a sense of mind, without a sense of attachment, this is mine, this is me. So that mama is mine, nirmamaha is like without a sense of me and mine. Nirahankarha, without a sense of ego. Ahamkara is, aham is me, ahamkara is ego. So without a sense of ego, charati, saha, one who moves about, who leads his life in this manner, saha shantim adhigacchati. So he attains peace. He attains shanti. Vihaya kamanyaha sarvan.
Vihaya kamanyah sarvan
Pumams charati nispraha.
pumams charati nispraha
Nirmamo nirahankaraha.
nirmamo nirahankaraha
Sa shantim adhigacchati.
sa shantim adhigacchati.
Then finally he says, Esha Brahmi sthiti partha nainam prapya vimuhyati sthitva syam antakalepi brahma nirvanam ruchhati. So this is the state of Brahman. This is the Brahmi sthiti. It's a state of Brahman. One who attains this state is never deluded. And being established in that state, even barely at the hour of death, he becomes one with the Supreme. Because once you enter a timeless state, it doesn't matter whether you entered it at the age of 15 or at the age of 50 or just the moment before you die. You have attained a timeless state. It is immaterial whether what happens to the body, right? So he says, Partha, Esha Brahmi Sthitihi. This is the Brahmi Sthiti, the state of Brahman. Enam prapya na vimuhyati. Having attained this, one is never deluded. It is a path of no return. Once you attain that highest level, you can come back to the other old state. Like, sometimes we say when we see some optical illusion or something, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Forever you have seen that connection, whatever, if you this optical illusion, you know how it works, you cannot unsee it. So similarly, once you attain the state of Brahman, you cannot come back because you have realized it. You know this is what is reality. Correct? Enam prapya na vimuhyati antakale api, even at the last moment of your life, antakale api asyam sthitva, being established in this, Brahma Nirvanam Richati. He becomes one with Brahman. He attains Brahma Nirvana. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha
एषा भ्रामी स्थितः पार्थ
Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati
नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति
Sthitvasyam Antakalepi
स्थित्वास्याम् अन्तकालेऽपि
Brahma Nirvana Mrichati.
ब्रह्म निर्वाणमृच्छति.
So, with this, we come to the end of the second chapter. I'll just take a few moments break because we will stop the recording here and we will restart the recording. So, just okay. So, we will now go to the review of the second chapter. We have already seen that the first few verses of the second chapter are almost a sort of extension of the first chapter, right? The first 9 or 10 verses can be seen as a logical portion of the first chapter. It is starting from verse number 11 that really the instruction of the Gita starts, and we can consider that to be a logical starting point of the second chapter. What are the different broad categorization of the verses we have seen in the second chapter? First, Krishna starts out with the opening message. I told you that which is sometimes interpreted in a different way by people. He says, Ashocyan anvashochastvam prajnavadamscha bhashase gatasun agatasuncha nanushocanti panditaha. You are grieving for something which you should not grieve for. There is no point in worrying. There is no point in grieving. And a person who is wise, whether will not grieve for the living or for the dead. The person who is wise will go about doing their work. They will not be grieving, they will not be worrying. So, starting from that verse for about, probably till the 29th or 30th shloka, what he talks about is the nature of the Atma. Nature of the Atma is the higher self, the spirit, the soul, all these, the eternal aspect of the life as opposed to the short-lived or transient aspect of life. So the eternal nature of the self is the is the main topic. The first few verses are the remainder of the first chapter. The second thing we see is the eternal nature of the Atma. Then he talks about the importance of performing dharma and the practical implications of abandoning the war, and he gives him some practical the kind of a materialistic or transactional arguments can be seen in this section. Then, after describing all the dangers or all the problems of moving away from the battlefield, Arjuna says, so far I have told you the path of Sankhya, or the theoretical part, which is basically reference to the what he has spoken about the Atma. Then he comes to the practical application of the theory. So from the 39th shloka onwards until the 53rd shloka, he talks about the practical application of the theory. Finally, 54th shloka is where Arjuna asks Krishna, what is the characteristic of a person who is having a steady intellect? How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he stand? How does he go about leading his life? Then from 55 to 72, in a very, very detailed manner, Krishna talks about the characteristics of a sthita prajna, a person of steady intellect. So let's examine this in different sections. First of all, we have, if you remember, the Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra about Arjuna, what's happening on the battlefield, and he speaks about the despondency of Arjuna, and he tells Dhritarashtra, Arjuna said all these things, and finally he said, "Na yotse, I will not fight," and he puts his bow and quiver of arrows down, and he sits silent. At that point of time, what is the first reaction from Krishna is he says, Prahasanniva, almost as if he was smiling, almost like an adult looks at a child who's behaving, throwing a tantrum. What is the first reaction of the parent when your child throws a tantrum? Is you are, come on, man, really? Are you serious? That kind of a light smile appears on his face. He says, come on, what's wrong with you, right? And then he says, opening words is prajna vadamsha bhashase. You seem to speak words of wisdom. That so you are saying these words which appear wise, because it's not coming from a place of wisdom, it's coming from a place of confusion. But the words he's using, punya, papa, vairagya, he's talking about Swarga and Naraka. He's expounding on all these topics using fantastic terminology without knowing what really it means. He's saying, oh, all the Jati Dharma is going to get destroyed, without realizing that he is only going to destroy his Jati Dharma right now by not fighting in the war. So Krishna tells him, you are talking about all the Kula Dharma, Jati Dharma will get destroyed when there is a war. Even before all the war is starting, you are getting ready to walk away from your Jati Dharma, which is to fight in the war. Your Swadharma is to fight in the war, not just Jati Dharma. Your natural tendency is that of a martial warrior, because you are trained with so much of dedication and years of effort, and you are here today you have been assigned to fight in this war, and you are fighting it for the sake of dharma, all these things, and you are ready to walk away. So where is the point of some Jati Dharma getting destroyed some after the war? Right now it is getting destroyed. So whatever Arjuna is saying, these are all coming from a place of confusion and turmoil and anxiety. It is not coming from a place of wisdom. Therefore, although the words appear very wise, they are not wise words. They are foolish words, right? So then he goes on to talk about the distinction between what is eternal, what is short-lived. So the Nitya, Anitya Viveka, this is called. Nitya is eternal, Anitya is ephemeral, transient, short-lived. So the distinction between the two of them. That's what he describes in the shloka starting from the 12th onwards, that there are certain things which are eternal, and we should realize what is the difference between the eternal and the short-lived. So he talks about how the sense organs and sensates interact with each other, and how a person of intellect is having a lot of patience to observe this sensates coming and going, and looks at the sensations, and he is able to remain calm despite this transactions between the senses and the sensates. Then he realizes that the body is perishable, but the Atma is not. So there are different levels of reality. It is not that the body is not real. It is just that in the face of the Atma, which is eternal, this appears as unreal. Also, not just the body, but the entire world is determined, it is deemed to be asat or unreal, or relative. When we say it's, for example, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya, which is a very, very well-known refrain of the Advaita school of philosophy. When you say Jagan Mithya, it doesn't mean that the world is false. It doesn't mean that the world doesn't exist. It is from our experience, we know that the world exists. Our experience tells us this, right? So what is the meaning of the word mithya here? It is relative. So the world is dependent on something. It does not have an independent existence. Whereas Brahman has an independent existence. Similarly, the body does not have an independent existence. It is dependent on the Chaitanya, the consciousness. Whereas the Atma is having an independent existence. So this distinction between what is real and what is unreal is very clearly laid out. Now, can the Atma exist on its own without the body? Yes, but it is not in a physical, if it has to be in a physical realm, it has to have a body. That's what basically it means. However, when we look at ourselves as individuals, we have a physical element, which is the body. We also have a non-physical element, which is the Atma. Without the Atma, body, there is without Chaitanya, without the Atma, body is like any other. It's like what is the difference between somebody who is alive and somebody who is dead? Both have got body, but here the body is decaying and there is no Chaitanya. In the case of somebody who's alive, they have Chaitanya, right? So that is the distinction that he makes between when we say real and unreal. It's only a different relative level of reality. So then he talks about how in the battlefield, when you are going to the battlefield, one should not get worried about death and destruction because it is a part and parcel of it. And here I must take a small deviation and mention that when on the battlefield, Krishna tells Arjuna that, I have already killed these people and, it's only the body which dies, the Atma is eternal and so on. There may be a question somebody will ask, oh, so therefore does Bhagavad Gita give us the permission to commit murder? Anyway, this person is in front of us, his body is unreal. So if we commit murder, is it okay? Because anyway, I am not killing the Atma. Is it okay? So, in fact, I remember when I was in college, there was a movie of Amitabh Bachchan and Manoj Bajpayee called Ux. And there, this Manoj Bajpayee is playing the role of a serial killer, and he is finally caught by Amitabh Bachchan, who plays the role of a cop, and he is brought to the court for a trial. And then in the courts in India, we usually have to keep our hand on the Bhagavad Gita to take the oath, just like I think in the US they will use the Bible or some other text to take the oath that I will not commit perjury, I will not tell a lie when I am on the stand. So he says, there is in Bhagavad Gita says, nobody is killed, na hanyate hanyamane sharire, ubhau tavana vijanito, nayam hanti na hanyate. So neither is anybody killing, neither is somebody killed. So therefore, you should not arrest me. You should not, I'm not at fault because it's a very vitanda vada, we say in the technical terminology. It is a baseless argument or a foolish argument. What he's trying to say is the nature of the soul is such that it is not killed when the body is killed. That does not mean you get license to do whatever you want in the real, in the material world. So that is why we have the concept of dharma. So when we are adhering to dharma, then we can also hold, you see this in conjunction with dharma, that we have to fulfill our dharma. So therefore, this principle of the Atma and the Deha, or the Deha and the Dehi, is meaningful when it is the dharma of the person to commit a killing. Whether it is a soldier on the battlefield, it is his dharma to kill the enemy. That's his job. Or he is somebody who is an executioner, who has got the role of executioner. The person has been granted a death sentence by the judge. And there is a person who is supposed to, somebody has to be an executioner. He has to execute this death sentence. Now, if that person starts getting very agitated, oh, how can I kill this person? He has not done anything wrong to me. So why should I kill this person? It is his dharma to kill this person because there is a death sentence passed on him. Whether death sentence is dharmic or not is a whole big debate which has been unresolved for a long time. We will not get into that. But what I'm trying to say is that in the practical sense, when it is the dharma of a person to kill another, like in the case of a war, then it is important to remember this precept. So when we violate dharma, then none of these things hold good because it is wrong to violate dharma. So that is something there is a possible question that may come up about this killing. That's why I thought I'll mention this. So one of the very, very important aspects, like I said just now, in the Bhagavad Gita is dharma. So we have to study this word with little bit of detail if we want to understand the overall import of the Gita. So when I started out the second chapter, I discussed about dharma to some extent. I think you're also familiar, most people will be familiar with what dharma is. It's a very, very oft repeated and very prevalent word, especially in the Indian mind. Dharma is very, very strongly entrenched. So what are the benefits of dharma? A twofold benefit. One is the dharma itself means sustenance, sustainability. So sustainability of the world at large. And also dharma leads to welfare of the individual. If everybody is following their dharma, then all the individuals involved will be happy. So it is good for the sustenance of the world, good for the welfare of the individual. Now, last time when I spoke about dharma, I gave an overview of it. I mentioned to you that it is one of the four purusharthas. So today I'll take a few minutes to discuss about some of the different aspects of dharma. So dharma can be of different kinds. One, the most important, is called the sadharana dharma or the samanya dharma. This is something which applies to everybody. These are universal principles that apply to everybody in every era, in every geography, at every age. So, what are these sadharana? What are the the characteristics or the qualities in sadharana dharma? This has been very nicely laid out in the Manusmriti, which is a traditional book on law and politics and morals and values and so on. In the Manusmriti, he lists out 10 qualities that determine sadharana dharma or samanya dharma, universal principles. And what are these 10 concepts? Dhriti, Kshama, Dama, Asteya, Shaucha, Indriya Nigraha, Dhi, Vidya, Satya, Akrodha. I'll come to them one by one. Dhriti is steadfastness, courage, fortitude. Dhriti. So, what the first thing that Krishna tells Arjuna is, where has this unmanliness come from, and why are you so weak? Stand up and fight. First thing he says, Klaibyam masmagam partha na etatvai upapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. First opening line, courage. If you don't have courage, you cannot adhere to dharma. You cannot do the right thing. To do the right thing, first of all, you need courage, you need fortitude. So that is the first quality, Thriti. Second is Kshama, forgiveness. Unless you have the quality of forgiveness and tolerance and patience, again, you will not be able to adhere to dharma. You must have that kind of mental patience to tolerate, to accept differences and so on. Third is Dhamma. Dhamma is controlling the mind, self-control. Fourth is Asteya. Asteya, very simple, not coveting others' property, not stealing, not going behind what is not ours. So Asteya is not coveting other people's things. Shaucha, fifth is Shaucha, which is purity. Purity at the level of the physical level, which is maybe personal hygiene, keeping oneself clean, at the level of speech, speaking good words and being refined in speech, and at the level of thought, not thinking impure thoughts, not thinking bad things. So purity at the level of thought, speech, and body. Sixth is Indriya Nigraha, controlling the sense organs. So being careful about what you indulge with your senses. Seventh is Dhi or intellect. So intellect also is very important for dharma. A foolish person cannot be following dharma. One has to be intelligent. One has to apply their intellect. So everybody have a different level of intellect. Everybody cannot have the same intelligence, obviously, but one has to apply their mind. So anybody who applies their mind, uses whatever intelligence they have to lead a good quality of life, can adhere to dharma. So that he is also very important. Vidya is the eighth, knowledge, especially knowledge of the ultimate reality. In general, knowledge about various things. Knowledge is again very important. Ninth is Satya, which is being truthful, being honest. Integrity is part of Dharma. Finally, 10th is Akrodha, being free of anger. Now, this is not in any ordered list, like, it's not one leading to the other or one more important than the other, to my understanding. All these 10 are required. Courage, forgiveness, mind control, not coveting others' wealth and property, purity of thought, speech, and action, controlling the sense organs, intellect, knowledge, honesty, and being free of anger. So these are the 10 qualities that determine what is universal dharma. Now, this is required for anybody. This will be acceptable to any sensible person from any part of the world. So this applies to everybody. So when we say Samanya Dharma, this is for all people. Then we have something called Vishesha Dharma, that is Dharma under special circumstances, Dharma which are applicable only to some people, only for a particular amount of time. For example, if somebody is a student in a school, there are certain regulations and rules and things which are applicable only to students, which are not applicable to adults. So, for example, if you go to the Louvre Museum in Paris, you'll say for everybody else it is so many 20 euros or 10 euros or something. But if you're a student, it is free. That is a Vishesha Dharma. You can't say, oh, you're discriminating between students and non-students. It's not discrimination. It's a specific Vishesha Dharma that if you are a student, if you are studying architecture, if you are an artist, you can freely enter the Louvre. But if you are not any of these things, you are just a tourist, please pay this much of money before entering. So it's not discrimination, it is a particular distinction that it is made because they want to incentivize people who are artists and architects to go and see these beautiful paintings in the Louvre, right? So similarly, there are certain things, there are a lot of these old age communities that are coming up in India. So they say there are these assisted living facilities and all that. So they say if you are above 60, you can apply here. If you are below 60, you are not allowed to buy a house in this community. You are not allowed to enter this place. It's only for people above 60. Can you say you're discriminating? It is called old age home. It is called assisted living facilities, not for you who's 20 years old or 30 years old. Right? So there's clear distinction between what is meant for certain people. So it is only in that particular time, that particular age group, there is certain distinctions that is made. Similarly, if you look at like a operation theater in a hospital, anybody and everybody cannot enter that. You must either be a surgeon, or you must be a nurse, or you must be a ward boy. You must have certain permissions to enter that place. India, we are your United States, these are democratic countries, but democracy is only up to certain places. You cannot enter the kitchen of some restaurant. It is a restricted access. You cannot enter the Pentagon. You cannot enter some Area 51, right? So like that, there are certain rules and regulations that apply only to a particular place or particular time. So these are called as Vishesha Dharma, which are specific to circumstances. Then a part of Vishesha Dharma, we can also say the things which are applicable to rulers and kings is called Raja Dharma. So you have certain conveniences and certain privileges of being the head of a state. If you're the president of a country or a prime minister of a country or a chief minister of a state, you have certain privileges that common people don't have. If you say, oh, democracy, everybody has to be equal, I will also have a red color thing on my car and I will put this sound and go, then everybody will have a red color symbol and it loses all meaning. The moment we hear that sound or that flashing light, we know it's an ambulance or a fire engine or it's a important person who is going. So we make way and let them go, right? If everybody has a red light on their car, it loses all meaning. When you are writing a document, you make bold certain words in the document. If you press Control A and Control B and make the entire thing bold, it loses all its meaning. The whole idea of using this is so that it highlights certain things. So like this, the Raja Dharma is something which only applies to people who are in the ruling, in the ruling class. Then we also have something called as the Naimittika Dharma, which is something which is more to do with the traditional practices. So we have certain worship, we have certain rituals, vratas, yajna, and to which we do to achieve certain personal goals, or we do certain kind of prayaschitta for having done some error and we have gone transgressed somewhere. So these are certain traditional duties also come under dharma. And finally, we have something called as apad dharma, which is the dharma in adverse circumstances. So normally we won't have that, but for special reasons, special circumstances, these become the dharma. So during the COVID, there was a lockdown. Everybody at their house. This is not a normal thing. It is for a special situation when there is a pandemic of that order. The government has said, oh, you should all be in your houses because you should not spread the virus everywhere. So you are not allowed to step out of your house except to buy grocery at 9 a.m. in the morning, whatever. We had all these rules. This is all apad dharma. It cannot sustain for too long. It is only for a short period of time this is allowed. So that kind of emergency rules, emergency principles are called apad dharma. So this is, very, very broadly what dharma entails. So when we understand this, we see the Bhagavad Gita in a more clearer light. So we looked at the eternal nature of the Atma, and we looked at dharma. Then what are the kind of arguments that Krishna makes at a practical level? First of all, he says, people are so at the higher level, he says everybody is anyway going to die, and this Atma is eternal. So you have to execute your work and so on. That is at the level of the Atma. Then here, in the practical level, what does he say? This war has taken place without your active choice. It's not that there was not a survey that said, do you like to have a war? Please, yes, sir, please, madam. Like these surveys they conduct. Would you like a war? Oh, yes, okay, good. You like a war? Let's have. No, it's not like that, right? So it was not by Arjuna's choice. He did not vote for it. He did not press any button. It just happened. There was a war and he was dragged into it. He had anticipated it, but it was not what he liked. He did not wish for it. And there was a lot of attempt to stop it. Krishna went and tried his best to stop the war. Despite all this thing, it happened. So it's therefore you are dragged into this. You will not be, you won't be beget any papa. You won't be called a sinner because you fought this war, because it was not your choice. However, if you don't fight and walk away from it, then it will be papa. Okay, and if you leave this battlefield, people will make fun of you. People will call you a coward. The people who had great respect for you will make fun of you, will lose respect. And your enemies will speak words that should not be heard. Unspeakable words. They will make fun of you. They will talk lightly about you. And you will lose whatever fame and honor you have. And for an honorable person, it is worse. Dishonor is worse than death. And he says, if you die on the battlefield, if you're scared that you will die, don't worry. Even if you die, you will attain Viraswarga. You will attain a special place in the heavens, which is reserved for the brave warriors. If you win this war, if you defeat these people, you will attain this entire kingdom. Earlier, you had only half the kingdom. You had only Indraprastha. Now you will also get Hastinapura. You will get all these places. You will become the master of, such a large tract of land. So you will attain this kingdom. Then he says, you are a great warrior, and your swadharma, your innate nature is to fight. You are so good at it. And if you close your eyes, ask your heart, it will tell, yes, go and fight. So you are temporarily, you are having a confusion, but you are a great warrior, and it is your nature. Even if you try to control it, it is only temporary. Later, you will regret in case, for whatever reason, you walk away today. And after the war, you will regret. You will be cursing yourself for having stepped out of the war, because that is your innate nature. Your basic nature is that of a warrior. And he says, even if you, okay, let's say you don't want anything, if you are not at all interested in the kingdom and you're not interested in anything, at least for the sake of larger welfare, for the sake of dharma, you do this, you fight. After you win the war, if you want, you can go walk away, no problem. That's what Krishna did. That's exactly what Krishna did after he was instrumental in winning the Mahabharata war. Those of you who have read the Mahabharata will know he was instrumental as a master strategist to win this war. And what happens after the war? Where is Krishna? He goes to console Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. He holds their hands and consoles them. Then after that, when they come back, he's sitting in meditation. He's quietly sitting in a room in deep meditation after the war is over. He's not at all interested after the war. Otherwise, he will say, if one of the main chief strategists after, let's say, there's like an election. After the election, the chief strategist will tell, oh, I want this ministry. You should make me that minister. I want this, I want to be the head of this committee, and I should be in charge of this thing. So everybody, whoever is successful, they will want to have a share of the victory cake. But Krishna is just sitting and meditating. And Yudhishthira is shocked. He says, what's wrong with you? He said, I have done what I have to do, and I'm meditating, and I'm thinking about Bhishma. He's this old man with so much treasure house of knowledge. He's lying on the bed of arrows. I'm just thinking how we can get this knowledge from him. Let us go and learn from him. So the vision of this person is, after winning the war, he doesn't want to take some special, some cabinet minister rank or something. He just want to, is that work is done, he want to do something else. So like this, after winning the war, if you want to go away, you go away. But you fight the war for the welfare, larger welfare. And finally, he says, it is the larger will of the divine. If you don't participate in the war, you will be dragged to it. And already this is determined. It is your loss if you don't fight. So this entire set, I'm taken it from D.V. Gundappa's book. Very clearly, he has articulated one after the other the different 10 different points that Arjuna is told. Krishna tells Arjuna. So I'm just listing it out for you from that. Now we saw, then he moves on to the practical aspects of the war, right? So he spoke about Arjuna's duty. Then he says, when it comes to the practical details of the war, that if you adhere to the path of yoga, even a little bit of this will save you from a lot of trouble. And there is no negative outcome when you apply your mind sincerely in the path of yoga. He says, a cultivated mind attains single point focus, and one should not get distracted by these words of the Vedas. One should be interested in the Veda and adhere to the words and practice it in daily life, but you should not be confused or distracted just by the words of the Veda. And he talks about how people who just go by the letter and not the spirit of the Vedas, they are confused, and they don't know the reality. Then, of course, the famous verse, Karmani vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhur mate sangosto karmani, where he says that you can only control the action you are undertaking. You cannot control how it's going to pan out. You cannot control the results. Therefore, the motivation for your action should not entirely be the result. Result also will motivate the action to some extent, but it should not only be this particular result motivating your action, because there is a great chance of disappointment. At the same time, don't be lazy, don't shirk away from your duties, thinking that anyway I cannot control the outcome, so I will be sitting doing nothing. So don't become lazy. At the same time, don't allow the result alone to dictate what action you are taking up. So this is very important. Then also before that, he talks about the three gunas and Vedas dealing with the three gunas. Um, Now, sattva is state of benign goodness and vigor, which helps us go forward. It raises our standards. Rajas is a state of stagnation, and the deluded, the relentless activity, it's a state of stagnation. And the deluded lethargy, tamas, is a downward spiral. We see this later in the 14th chapter, the nature of the sattva, rajas, and tamas. So when he says you be established in sattva, is you go in the right direction on the path that is leading to the destination, which is transcending the three gunas. Then you will break free from the bondage of action. He says. So, what is the bondage of action? It is the attachment to the results of action. So, when you're not attached to the results and you're focused on the action, what is at the action, which is what you can control, then you will be leading a free life, because the moment you can cut off from the future possibilities and focus on the work at hand, then naturally it becomes far more easier to immerse oneself in the activity at hand. It's a much more enriching experience, right? So you have seen this yourself so many times. When you set up your desk and you start working on something very seriously, or you're doing a painting, or you're doing cooking, or you're doing reading, whatever you're doing, you're really serious, you are looking forward to it. Then imagine somebody ring the bell, somebody calls you on the phone, and your mother or your father or your grandmother, somebody is asking you to go and buy some vegetables, and somebody, your younger brother or younger sister, is making a racket. So then what is your reaction? You're so irritated with all these distractions, right? So because the amount of attention available in your brain is getting scattered by all these things. Similarly, within your brain, you have all these possible distractions. Oh, what is the possible future result for this? Oh, something is not going to be right. How is it going to work out well? Oh, last time when I had done this, this thing had happened. So all these thoughts are just like somebody ringing the bell, your brother or your sister creating a ruckus, or your grandmother asking you to go and buy something, or your friend is calling you, or your boyfriend is messaging you, whatever. All these things that are happening, like the distractions in the physical world, similarly in the mental world, all these distractions are there. And these distractions only come in the way of your focused activity. So therefore you want to push out all these distractions and focus on the work at hand. That's what really he says. You can control only your actions, you can't control the results. Don't think about what's going to happen. Don't have a wavering intellect. Okay, so this is what he talks about. Very, very practical advice. I think, like I had thought, that running out of time today, we can't finish the recap. So let's take this Karmani Vadikaraste verse as a cutoff point for today. And from the 48th shloka till the 72nd, let's do a quick recap on Monday morning, my time, or Sunday evening, your time in the US. And then we will go to the third chapter. Is there any comment in the chat? Okay. Okay, Mamata ji has about Vishesha Dharma. There is Vishesha Dharma basically means something which is specific to a place or a time or a individual and so on. So there are many kinds of Vishesha Dharma. So it could be Varna Dharma, so the social classification, Ashrama Dharma, different stages of a person's life. Or you can say Raja Dharma, the different specific rules and regulations for a ruler of a kingdom. Similarly, we have Moksha Dharma, the rules and regulations for ascetics, people who are mendicants, who are sadhus, sannyasis, who are entirely on the path of Brahman. They have certain rules and regulations and privileges and so on. So like this, Vishesha Dharma is with, the star conditions apply. Vishesha Dharma. Samanya Dharma, no star applicable for everybody at all times, right? Okay. Correct. So Prahalad ji has a point that at one level, Krishna was like, if you fight, you will gain heaven, you will gain Viraswarga. If you win, if you die, you will attain Swarga. If you win, you will enjoy the kingdom. This is a practical aspect, but ideally, don't worry about the future. Dr. Raju, this book of D.V. Gundappa is called Jivana Dharma Yoga. It is going to come out in book form in English later this year, but right now it is available on preksha.in. I will send the link on the WhatsApp group. It's available as a series of articles, and everybody can go through it. I had mentioned about it in the beginning also. I will send the link in the group. So thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, and we will meet Monday morning India time, Sunday evening US time. Om Tat Sat. Namaste.
Thank you so much.